There's a reason most people quit. Not because they're weak, not because they're stupid, but because they chose a path that looks easy until it isn't. Building a life most people quit isn't about motivation. It's about stepping into a reality where comfort disappears. Excuses don't work, and every single day becomes a test of who you really are. Let me tell you something most people don't want to hear. If you want an extraordinary life, you have to become an uncommon person. And uncommon people live differently. They wake up when they don't feel like it. They work when they don't feel like it. They keep going when everything inside them is screaming to stop. Because they understand one thing. The life you want is on the other side of everything you're avoiding. Most people spend their lives chasing comfort. They want easy money. They want fast success. They want recognition without sacrifice. But here's the truth. Comfort is a trap. The more comfortable you become, the weaker you get. The weaker you get, the easier it is to quit. And the easier it is to quit, the further you move away from the life you dream about. So, if you truly want to build a life most people quit, you have to fall in love with discomfort. You have to train your mind to say, this is hard, good, because hard is where growth lives. Hard is where discipline is built. Hard is where you separate yourself from everyone else. Think about it. Every successful person you admire didn't get there by doing what was easy. They got there by doing what others refuse to do. Early mornings, late nights, lonely weekends, sacrifices nobody sees. That's the price. And most people aren't willing to pay it. That's why they quit. They quit when it gets boring. They quit when progress slows down. They quit when nobody claps for them. But the ones who win, they keep going when it's silent. They keep going when there's no validation, no applause, no guarantee, just belief and relentless action. Let me ask you something. Are you willing to keep going when it's not exciting anymore? Because at some point, it won't be. At some point, the motivation fades. The energy drops. The results take longer than expected. And that's where most people disappear. But that's where you have to rise. Because discipline is what carries you when motivation dies. Discipline is waking up and doing the work even when your mind is full of excuses. I'm tired. I'll start tomorrow. I deserve a break. No, you don't need another excuse. You need a stronger mindset. A mindset that says, I do what needs to be done no matter how I feel. That's how you build a life most people quit. Not by feeling ready. Not by waiting for the perfect moment. But by taking action again and again, especially when it's hard. And let's be real for a second, this path is lonely. When you decide to level up, you will outgrow people. You will outgrow habits. You will outgrow the version of yourself that once felt comfortable. And it's going to feel uncomfortable. You might feel misunderstood. You might feel isolated. You might even question yourself. But understand this. Growth requires separation. You can't stay the same and expect different results. So if people start drifting away, let them. If your old life starts falling apart, let it, because you're not losing anything. You're making space for something greater. The truth is, most people quit not because they can't succeed, but because they can't handle the process. They want the reward without the struggle. They want the result without the grind. But life doesn't work like that. You earn your life every day with every decision. The way you wake up, the way you think, the way you respond to challenges. It all adds up, and over time, it creates either a life you're proud of or a life full of regret. So ask yourself, what kind of life are you building right now? Because whether you realize it or not, you're building something every single day. Either discipline or excuses, either strength or weakness, either progress or stagnation. There is no neutral. And if you keep choosing what's easy, you'll keep getting average results. But if you choose what's hard, if you choose to push yourself when it hurts, if you choose to stay consistent when it's boring, then slowly, quietly, powerfully, your life will start to change. Not overnight, not instantly, but inevitably, because consistency beats intensity. Anyone can go hard for a day. Anyone can feel motivated for a week. But can you stay committed for months? For years? That's the real question. That's what separates winners from quitters. Winners show up every single day, even when they don't feel like it, even when progress is invisible, even when nobody is watching, because they understand something powerful. Success is built in the dark. It's built in the early mornings nobody sees. It's built in the late nights nobody applauds. It's built in the moments where quitting feels easier, but you choose to continue. That's where your identity is formed. And once you become that person, the results are just a byproduct. So stop focusing only on what you want. Start focusing on who you need to become. Because the life you dream about requires a different version of you, a stronger version, a more disciplined version, a more focused version. And that version doesn't appear by accident. It's built through struggle, through failure, through persistence, through showing up again and again, no matter what. So, if you're serious about building a life most people quit, you have to make a decision, a real decision, not the kind you make when you're emotional, but the kind you stick to when things get hard, a decision that says, I will not quit, no matter how slow it gets, no matter how hard it feels, no matter how long it takes. Because once you remove quitting as an option, everything changes. Your mindset shifts, your actions become sharper, your discipline becomes stronger, and suddenly, what felt impossible starts to feel inevitable. This is a path. It's not easy. It's not comfortable. It's not for everyone. But if you stay on it, if you embrace the struggle, if you commit fully, you will build something most people never will. A life of strength, a life of purpose, a life most people quit. At some point, reality hits you harder than motivation ever could. You realize that dreaming isn't enough. Talking about goals isn't enough. Even planning isn't enough. Because at the end of the day, your life doesn't change based on what you want. It changes based on what you do. And that's where most people fall apart. They stay stuck in a cycle of thinking, wishing, hoping, but never executing at the level required to actually win. Let me be clear with you. Execution is everything. You can have the best ideas in the world. You can watch every motivational video. You can write down your goals 100 times. But if you don't take consistent, uncomfortable, relentless action, nothing changes. This is where the gap is created. The gap between who you are and who you could become. And that gap is filled with one thing: daily discipline. Not once in a while, not when you feel inspired, but every single day, even when it's repetitive, even when it's boring, even when it feels like you're not making progress. Because the truth is, the work that changes your life is often the work you don't feel like doing. It's the extra hour, the extra rep, the extra effort when your mind says, that's enough. But for you, it's never enough. Because you're not chasing average. You're building a life most people don't have the courage to pursue. And courage doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means you move forward despite the fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of wasting time. These fears will always be there. But the difference is, most people listen to them. You don't. You use them. You turn fear into fuel. When you feel scared, that's your signal that you're stepping into growth. When you feel uncomfortable, that's your signal that you're leveling up. So instead of running away from it, run towards it. Because everything you want is hiding behind the things you're avoiding. And let's talk about something real: failure. Most people are terrified of it. They avoid risks. They play small. They stay in their comfort zone just to avoid failing. But here's the truth they don't understand. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of it. Every time you fail, you learn. Every time you fall, you grow. Every mistake gives you feedback. But only if you keep going. Because failure only wins when you quit. Read that again. Failure doesn't define you. Quitting does. So if you fall, good. Get back up. If you lose, good. Learn from it. If things don't go your way, good. Adapt and keep moving. Because resilience is built through struggle. And resilience is what separates people who start from people who finish. Most people start strong. They're excited. They're motivated. They're ready to change their life. But then reality sets in. It gets hard. It gets frustrating. It takes longer than expected. And that's when they disappear. But not you. You stay. You stay when it's hard. You stay when it's messy. You stay when nothing seems to be working, because you understand something they don't. Progress is not always visible. Sometimes you're growing internally before anything shows externally. Sometimes you're building strength, discipline, and mental toughness in silence. And one day, it all clicks. But only if you don't quit before that moment arrives. This is why patience is power. Not passive waiting, but active persistence. Showing up every day. Doing the work. Trusting the process. Even when you can't see the results yet. Because results take time. But quitting happens instantly. And every time you choose to keep going instead of quitting, you're stacking wins. Small wins. Invisible wins. But powerful wins. Waking up early when you didn't feel like it. Finishing the task you wanted to avoid. Pushing through when your energy was low. These moments matter. They build your identity. And identity is everything. Because once you start seeing yourself as someone who doesn't quit, everything changes. You don't negotiate with excuses anymore. You don't rely on motivation anymore. You don't stop when it gets hard anymore. Because that's just not who you are. You become disciplined. You become focused. You become unstoppable. And it doesn't happen overnight. It's built through repetition, through consistency, through choosing the harder path, again and again. And yes, it's exhausting. There will be days where you feel drained, days where you question everything, days where quitting feels like the easiest option. But remember this, easy is expensive. It costs you your dreams. It costs you your potential. It costs you the life you could have lived. Hard is an investment. It pays you back with growth, strength, confidence, freedom. So choose your struggle. Because either way, life will challenge you. You can either face the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And trust me, regret is heavier. Regret stays with you. It reminds you of what you could have been if you didn't quit, if you didn't give up on yourself, if you didn't settle for less. So don't let that be your story. Don't be the person who looks back and wonders, what if? Be the person who pushed through, who stayed consistent, who refused to quit no matter what. Because building a life most people quit is not about being perfect. It's about being persistent. It's about showing up even when you're not at your best. It's about refusing to let temporary feelings control permanent decisions. And most importantly, it's about taking ownership, full ownership, no blaming, no excuses, no waiting for the perfect situation. You take responsibility for your life, your actions, your mindset, your future. Because at the end of the day, nobody is coming to save you. Nobody is going to do the work for you. It's on you. And that might sound harsh, but it's actually powerful because it means you're in control. You decide how hard you work. You decide how long you stay consistent. You decide whether you quit or keep going. And if you keep going, if you push past the pain, if you stay locked in when others fall off, then slowly, step by step, you will build something rare, something powerful, something most people never experience. A life built on discipline, a life built on resilience, a life most people quit. There comes a moment in this journey where everything gets quiet. No hype, no excitement, no motivation, just you and the work. This is the phase nobody talks about, the phase where discipline is no longer a choice. It becomes your identity. Because now, it's not about proving anything to anyone else. It's about proving something to yourself. That you are who you said you would become. That you don't fold under pressure. That you don't break when things get uncomfortable. That you don't quit when it gets boring. Because make no mistake, boring is where greatness is built, not in the moments of excitement, not in the moments of hype, but in repetition. Doing the same things over and over again with focus, with intensity, with purpose. That's what builds mastery. And most people can't handle that. They need constant stimulation. They need something new, something exciting. But the truth is, success is simple. It's just not easy. It's doing the basics better than anyone else for longer than anyone else. That's it. But the reason it feels so hard is because your mind is constantly trying to pull you back. Back to comfort. Back to distractions. Back to the old version of you. And this is where the real battle begins. Not outside, but inside your own head. Your mind will tell you, you've done enough, take a break. You can skip today. And if you listen even once, it becomes a habit. Because every time you give into weakness, you reinforce it. But every time you resist it, you build strength. So the question is, what are you reinforcing daily? Discipline or excuses? Because whatever you repeat, you become. If you repeat comfort, you become comfortable. If you repeat quitting, you become a quitter. But if you repeat discipline, you become dangerous. You become the kind of person who can't be stopped because you don't rely on feelings. You rely on standards. And standards change everything. Most people live based on feelings. If I feel good, I'll work. If I feel motivated, I'll try. If I feel ready, I'll start. But you don't operate like that anymore. You operate on a different level. You set a standard for your life, and you meet it, no matter what. No negotiation, no excuses, no compromise. Because once your standards rise, your life follows. And this is where you separate yourself completely. Because now, it's not about temporary effort. It's about permanent change. You don't just work hard sometimes. You become someone who works hard all the time. You don't just push yourself occasionally. You live in that mindset. That's how you build a life most people quit. Not through random bursts of energy, but through a controlled, consistent, disciplined lifestyle. And let's talk about sacrifice, because this is the part people try to avoid the most. They want success, but they don't want to give anything up. They want growth, but they don't want to let go of their old habits. They want a new life, but they're still holding on to their old one. It doesn't work like that. You can't have both. You can't stay the same and expect to level up. Something has to go. Maybe it's your distractions. Maybe it's your comfort zone. Maybe it's the people who keep you average. Whatever it is, you have to be willing to let it go. Because every level of your life requires a different version of you. And that version demands sacrifice, time, energy, comfort, and sometimes relationships. That's the reality. And it's not easy, but nothing worth having ever is. Because the bigger the goal, the bigger the sacrifice. And most people aren't willing to make it. That's why they quit. But you're not most people. You've already come too far to go back. You've already seen what you're capable of. And now, there's no turning back. Because once you realize your potential, settling becomes painful. Living an average life becomes unbearable. You start to feel it. That voice inside you telling you there's more, that you can do more, be more, achieve more. And that voice doesn't go away. You can ignore it for a while, but it will always come back. Stronger, louder, until you finally listen. And when you do, everything changes. You stop playing small. You stop making excuses. You stop wasting time. Because now, you understand the value of every moment. Time is your most valuable asset. And once it's gone, you don't get it back. So you stop treating it casually. You stop scrolling mindlessly. You stop procrastinating. You stop delaying your goals. Because you realize every day you waste is a day you don't get closer to the life you want. And that realization hits hard, but it also fuels you. It gives you urgency. It pushes you to move faster, work harder, stay focused. Because now, you're not just chasing success. You're racing against time. And that creates a different level of intensity, a different level of focus, a different level of commitment. And this is where most people break. Because this level requires everything. Your full attention, your full effort, your full discipline. No half measures, no shortcuts, no easy way out. Just work. Relentless, consistent, focused work. Day after day, week after week, year after year. And the crazy part is, at some point, it stops feeling hard. Not because the work gets easier, but because you get stronger. Mentally, emotionally, physically. You adapt. You evolve. You become someone who can handle pressure, stress, and challenges without breaking. And that's when you realize this is who you are now. Not someone who tries. Not someone who starts and stops, but someone who finishes. Someone who commits. Someone who builds a life most people don't have the strength to sustain. And once you reach that level, there's no limit to what you can achieve, because the only thing that was ever holding you back was you, and now you've taken control. At the end of all of this, it comes down to one simple truth. Who do you become when nobody is watching? Because that's where your real life is built, not in front of people, not when you're being praised, not when it's convenient, but in the moments where it's just you and your choices. The late nights when you're tired, the early mornings when your body is begging for more sleep, the days when everything feels heavy and your mind is filled with doubt. That's where the real decision is made. Most people think success is about big moments. It's not. It's about small decisions repeated daily. Choosing discipline over comfort. Choosing growth over ease. Choosing pain now instead of regret later. And here's the part nobody can escape. There will be days where you don't feel strong. Days where your confidence disappears. Days where your energy is gone. Days where quitting feels like relief. But listen carefully. Those are the days that matter the most. Because anyone can move forward when they feel good. But only a few can keep going when they feel broken. That's what separates you. That's what builds a life most people quit. You see, strength isn't built when everything is going your way. It's built when everything is working against you, and you still refuse to stop. When life hits you, and you get back up anyway. When things fall apart, and you rebuild anyway. When progress slows down, and you keep pushing anyway. That anyway mindset, that's everything. Because life will test you, again, and again, and again, not to destroy you, but to see if you're really serious. Serious about your goals. Serious about your growth. Serious about becoming the person you said you would be. And most people fail that test. Not because they're incapable, but because they're inconsistent. They show up one day, disappear the next. They go all in, then fall off. They start strong, but they don't last. And consistency is the game, not perfection. Consistency. Showing up when it's hard. Showing up when it's boring. Showing up when you don't feel like it. That's what builds momentum. And momentum changes everything. Because once you build it, things start to flow. Your habits become automatic. Your discipline becomes natural. Your mindset becomes unbreakable. But getting there, that's the hardest part. Because in the beginning, there is no momentum. There is no reward. There is no recognition. Just effort. Pure effort. And that's where most people quit. Because they don't see results fast enough. They don't feel progress fast enough. They don't believe it's working. So they stop. But what they don't realize is they were closer than they thought. Most people quit right before the breakthrough. Right before things start to change. Right before the results show up. Right before the momentum kicks in. And that's the difference between you and them. You don't stop, even when it feels pointless. Even when it feels slow. Even when it feels like nothing is happening. Because you trust the process. You trust that every rep matters. Every hour matters. Every drop of effort matters. And over time, it compounds. That's how real success is built. Not in one moment, but in thousands of unseen, uncelebrated moments. And when it finally shows, people call it luck. They say, you got lucky. You're talented. It happened fast. But they didn't see the years, the struggle, the sacrifice, the discipline, the days you wanted to quit, but didn't. They didn't see that part. But you did. You lived it. And that's why your success will mean more. Because you earned it. Every inch of it. And let's be honest, this journey changes you. You're not the same person anymore. You think differently. You move differently. You carry yourself differently. Because you've been through things most people avoid. You've faced your weaknesses. You've fought your excuses. You've pushed past your limits. And that creates something powerful. Confidence. Not loud confidence. Not fake confidence. But real, quiet confidence. The kind that doesn't need validation. The kind that comes from knowing I can handle whatever comes my way. That's the reward. Not just success, but who you become in the process. Because the truth is, the goal was never just the money, or the status, or the recognition. The real goal was growth, becoming stronger, becoming sharper, becoming disciplined, becoming someone who doesn't fold under pressure. And once you become that person, you can achieve anything, because now you have control. Control over your mind, control over your actions, control over your future. And that's rare, very rare, because most people never take control. They live on autopilot. They follow comfort. They avoid struggle. And in doing so, they limit themselves. They settle. They quit. But you didn't. You chose a different path, a harder path, a lonelier path, but more rewarding one. Because at the end of it, you don't just have success. You have pride. Pride in knowing you didn't give up. Pride in knowing you stayed disciplined. Pride in knowing you built something real. Something most people only dream about. And here's the final truth. This journey never really ends. There's always another level, another challenge, another version of you waiting to be built. But now, you're ready, because you've proven to yourself that you can do hard things, that you can stay consistent, that you can push through pain, that you can build a life most people quit. So from this point forward, there are no excuses, no going back, no settling, no quitting, only growth, only discipline, only forward. Because you didn't come this far just to stop now. You didn't fight through all that pain just to return to comfort. You didn't build all that strength just to become average again. No, you keep going. You go harder. You go further. Because now you know what you're capable of. And once you know that, there's no limit. So when it gets tough, and it will, remember who you are. Remember what you built. Remember why you started. And most importantly, remember this. You are not the kind of person who quits. Not anymore. Not ever.